I was balancing 3 cocktails on a tray with a fake smile so tight it hurt my jaw, trying not to drop anything as I weaved through a maze of white tablecloths and whispered condescension, when I heard the laughter, sharp, guttural, and unmistakably pointed at me. The kind of laughter that didn't rise from anything funny, just cruel amusement with a human target. My name is Nia Thompson. I'm 25, black, and currently pouring my Ivy League degree into dirty martini orders at Le Rive, the type of Manhattan rooftop restaurant where the plates are minimalist, the guests are maximalist, and I'm always the only black woman not being waited on. If you agree that dignity shouldn't come second to a paycheck, like and subscribe. I still feel that moment in my chest. It was supposed to be just another dinner rush, another night of tiptoe diplomacy, where I endure you people and sweetheart and the occasional, where are you really from, to pad my rent. But that night, Mitchell Vale walked in. Billionaire tech tycoon, VC darling, man who once said in a podcast that wokeness was killing innovation. He sat at table 6 with 4 other suits who reeked of too much power and no awareness. And from the moment I approached with the wine list, I could feel it. The shift in the air, like I was prey in a lion's den. Mitchell looked me up and down, then said, "Finally, some flavor." And the whole table chuckled like they'd just watched stand-up. I gave the same tight smile I'd learned to use since I was 12. The one that says I heard you. I hated it, but I'm not about to lose this job. And asked if they'd like to start with sparkling. Yes, but can you say that with a British accent? One of the men said. Another added, no, do it like a maid from Gone with the Wind. They all laughed again. My blood went cold, but I said, certainly, sir, with my best neutral tone and backed away before I either cried or threw the tray. I told my manager, Paul, who blinked once and said, that's Mitchell Vale. He practically paid for our last renovation. Just don't escalate. So I didn't. I served their shrimp ceviche and endured 5 more rounds of humiliation. Impressions, imitations, them snapping their fingers for me like I was livestock. At one point, one asked if I had a rapper boyfriend and if he'd be jealous. I stood there still. Breathe. Smile. Walk away. My mother used to tell me, you can't fight every battle, baby girl. Sometimes you just make a note and keep moving. But even she didn't have notes for this. It wasn't until the wine mix-up that it exploded. I'd grabbed the wrong bottle, Cabernet instead of their reserve Bordeaux, and Mitchell stood, loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear, and shouted, this is why you don't hire diversity for the sake of it. She's probably never even tasted real wine before. I froze. My heart hammered. It wasn't just what he said, it was that no one moved. Not Paul. Not the other guests. Not even the hostess, Lila, who met my eyes and then looked away. And I almost did what I always do. Bite down. Swallow. Keep working. But something in me cracked wide open. I set the tray down slowly, turned to Mitchell, and with the calm I didn't feel, said, Sir, I graduated from Yale with honors. I'm waitressing while I build my biotech startup. You could have heard a pen drop. The table of VCs went dead quiet. Mitchell blinked, then scoffed like he didn't believe me. But others in the restaurant stared, faces shifting from amusement to shame to something like realization. And in that moment, for the first time that night, I saw Mitchell Vale shrink. Not physically, but something in him curled inward, small and defensive. He muttered something about professionalism and sat down like nothing happened. I picked up the tray and walked back to the kitchen, my hands trembling so badly I almost dropped it. I didn't cry. Not then. I was too full of adrenaline and disbelief. Later, after the rush ended, Lila found me in the locker room and whispered, people heard. They're talking. She showed me a tweet, a blurry picture someone had taken from across the room with a caption, Black waitress at Le Rive just shut down Mitchell Vale with one sentence. Queen. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I was just glad my shift was over. I didn't know yet that my life had just changed. I didn't check my phone until I was already home, still in my wine-stained blouse. still smelling faintly of truffle oil and shame, still trying to understand whether what happened had actually happened. And when I did, I stared at the notifications like they were written in another language. Hundreds, then thousands, of mentions, shares, tags. The tweet had blown up overnight. That blurry photo of me, mouth mid-sentence, Mitchell frozen with a fork in hand like I'd just spoken an incantation, had become a moment. One of those internet latch things people grab onto, like hope or outrage or both. And I wasn't just the black waitress anymore. I was the black waitress who put a billionaire in his place. I should have felt triumphant, I guess, but all I felt was raw, exposed. I'd spent years trying not to be seen too much, at school, at work, even at networking events, knowing that being too visible, too assertive, too smart while being black and a woman could be social suicide. And now here I was, trending. People were digging. Someone found my LinkedIn. Another posted a screenshot of my senior thesis from Yale. Someone even pulled up a video of a presentation I'd given 2 years ago on the potential of CRISPR to treat sickle cell anemia. Comments flooded in, some calling me an inspiration, others saying I should have just done my job and not made it about race, and a loud, ugly minority accusing me of lying altogether. There's no way she went to Yale. This is why they need to stop lowering the bar for admissions. Bet she's playing the victim card to get a GoFundMe. I should have expected it. I knew visibility came with backlash, but I wasn't prepared for how fast it moved. Mitchell's PR team stayed silent at first, probably hoping the story would vanish like all the others. But the more they ignored it, the more it festered. My friends started texting me. Jasmine from undergrad, who always told me I was too quiet, said she cried when she saw the clip. My cousin Marcus called from Atlanta and said, "Girl, I knew it'd be your mouth that got you out the mud." I laughed. A real, belly-deep laugh. But then my restaurant called. Paul. He said upper management wanted to review the incident internally, which I knew was code for we're trying to figure out if this costs us more to support you or fire you. I asked if Mitchell had complained. He said no. I asked if he had my back. He hesitated. That silence told me everything. And that night, for the first time in a long time, I didn't sleep out of fear, but out of anticipation. The next morning, a local food journalist who'd followed me on Instagram DM'd me and asked for a comment. I gave her a short one. I stood up for myself, and I'd do it again. She ran with it. By the next day, BuzzFeed had picked it up. Then CNN. I started getting interview requests. I said no to most of them. I wasn't trying to become a brand. I just wanted to survive. But when a producer from a national morning show offered to fly me out and said I could bring a friend for support, I said yes. I brought Jasmine. I wore the one blazer I'd kept from my internship days and sat on that set under hot lights, heart racing, hands sweating in my lap, and told them everything. Not just what Mitchell said, but what he meant. That I wasn't an isolated case. That this wasn't about wine or one bad night. That people like me are constantly told to shrink, to smile through the sting, to carry the weight of other people's comfort before our own humanity. And when I said, I wasn't offended because he called me the help. I was offended because everyone in that restaurant already thought it. The host went quiet. And I knew I'd struck something deeper. The clip went viral again. But this time, something shifted. It wasn't just viral for spectacle. It was resonating. Other stories emerged. A black hostess from Lou Rive, Yvonne, messaged me anonymously, said Mitchell had once cornered her near the walk-in fridge and told her she'd be prettier if she smiled and took off that accent. She was Haitian. Another came from a former engineer at Vail Tech, Mitchell's company. He was Nigerian-American, said he'd left after his promotion was passed over for someone less qualified but more culturally aligned. Suddenly, this wasn't about a waitress anymore. It was about a pattern, about a man who had built his empire on the backs of people he thought would never speak up. I wrote an op-ed. I titled it "The Cost of Their Comfort." It got published in The Atlantic. And while all this was happening, while strangers argued about me online, while trolls sent me DMs full of slurs, while allies posted threads about implicit bias and institutional silence. I kept showing up to my shifts. Until the day I didn't. Because I quit. I didn't need Blue Rive anymore. I had options now. Real ones. A venture capital firm called Novashi, run by Black and Latino women, reached out after seeing my interview. They asked about my biotech project. I told them I was researching gene therapies for sickle cell because my cousin Mia had the disease and I was tired of watching her suffer while funding for that kind of research sat on the back burner. They asked for a deck. I didn't have one, so I made one in 48 hours. They scheduled the meeting. They offered seed funding. Just like that. Because I finally had something Mitchell Vale didn't. Visibility backed by proof. Weeks passed. More stories came out. Mitchell's board forced him to step down for optics. The restaurant released a statement thanking me for bringing attention to a lapse in hospitality culture. Paul got promoted. Of course he did. But I didn't care. I had lab space now. A team. A chance to build something that mattered. And yet, late at night, I'd still lie awake thinking about that moment, standing there, tray in hand, humiliated in front of a room full of people too scared to do the right thing. And I'd remember what my mom said, long ago, you don't have to burn down a house to get free. Sometimes, you just walk out the front door and make sure they know you took the keys with you. 6 months later, I walked past Larive in heels that didn't hurt, wearing a tailored coat and holding a portfolio of research that had been reviewed by a panel at Johns Hopkins just days before, and I didn't even flinch when I saw Mitchell Vale's face on a fading magazine cover in the window of a newsstand, because by then, it was old news. The world had moved on, and so had I. My name was no longer whispered behind menus or tagged beneath blurry tweets. I was just me, out loud now, no code switching, no shrinking, no pretending that my degrees or diction made me any less of a threat to people who only felt powerful when someone else was beneath them. Novashi had delivered on everything they promised: funding, mentorship, a seat at the table. And for the first time, the table didn't ask me to justify my presence. I was leading trials, speaking at conferences, mentoring girls who looked like me and had already been told by guidance counselors and media and silence that the world wasn't built for them. And still, the world tried. Mitchell's leave of absence turned into a quiet stepping down. Then the stories came in waves: lawsuits, depositions, anonymous testimonials from former staffers who felt emboldened by what I'd done. It didn't destroy him, not completely. Men like him fall into parachutes of wealth and networks padded with excuses. But his legacy was bruised, and the people he'd dismissed were finally heard. That meant more to me than his resignation ever could. I got a letter once, handwritten, from a girl in Florida who said she saw my interview, Googled CRISPR, and decided to switch her major to molecular biology. She ended the note with, "Thank you for speaking when I still didn't know how." I framed it, hung it in my office, because in a world that constantly asks Black women to be quiet, polite, agreeable, grateful, we sometimes forget the impact of simply refusing. Not with yelling, not with vengeance, just with the truth. Just by standing tall and saying, "You don't get to define me." These days, I still get stopped occasionally. A waiter, a student, a woman on the subway. They say, "Are you the one who?" And I smile and say, "Yeah, that was me." And they always nod like they know what that really means. I didn't set out to be a symbol. I just wanted to be respected. But maybe that's the revolution, when a Black girl speaks and the room listens. Not because she raised her voice, but because she never lowered it in the first place.